I would like to welcome also our panelist of today, Jean-Claude Vignoli. And this event is part of the Inspire Students Alumni Roundtable that are organized by the Alumni Office. And we aim at connecting students with former alumni and alumni of the Institute around the shared interests and shared experience of professional but also life experiences. And so today we have the great chance to talk and have this also informal conversation with Jean-Claude Vignoli, who completed his studies in international relations in 2005, I think, if it's correct. And he's the author of Pour une poignée d'ivoire, a book about his work as a trafficker hunter, which has been published last month. And so we will talk about his experience in defending animals, especially elephants. And I will now leave the floor to Jean-Claude. And I will, after the first presentation, open the floor for Q&A, so question and answers. And so I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Please, this could be much funnier if it's a round table. Don't hesitate to interrupt me if you have any question. The question about my English first. I haven't been talking in English for 4 years. I'm more fluent now in Spanish. So if you hear some weird accent, it's because I'm a bit rusted. First of all, who has ever seen an elephant in the wild? In the wild. Very few people. Can you, please, both of you, can you share how was your experience with the elephants? In a few words.
Just speechless. It was very beautiful.
Yeah, for me, it was like it was out of a dream. Since I was a kid, I was in love with animals, and I studied conservation biology. So when I finally got to see them in the wild, it was like a dream come true for me.
Elephants are social animals, just like us. They need their tribe to survive. Without the tribe, they just die. Most of the monkeys, the apes, are exactly the same. As soon as you kill the mother, or a few elements of the tribe, for the kids, it's over. They cannot survive alone. That's why there are pets in a, how is it called in English? Sanctuary, to spend the rest of their life. They cannot be reintroduced in the wildlife, in the wild. So my presentation will focus first, I'll introduce myself, then I'll introduce more the work against international traffickers. I'll also present how a former international relations student end up doing this kind of job, how we infiltrate international networks as well, and how, this is maybe the most interesting part of my expose, how does it conflict with a former human rights activist values? My values were contradicting sometimes the work I was doing. So first of all, who am I? I got a brief presentation. I would like to add the fact that before studying at the Graduate Institute, I was a civil servant for the Geneva state. I used to work in 2 departments before willing to change my life. So I joined the Graduate Institute when I was 25. I was already a bit old compared to my to the other students. Then, a few years after finishing my studies, I co-founded with a friend of mine UPR Info. It's an NGO working on the Universal Periodic Review. How many of you are familiar with the Universal Periodic Review? Very few, two. Are you studying human rights in general? How many of you? Okay, now I understand. So, UPR Info was the first and is still the only NGO working on the Universal Periodic Review mechanism, which is a strange mechanism because it assesses every single country in the world. So, be it China, be it Switzerland, be it United States, every single member state of the UN has to be reviewed every 5 years now regarding the human rights situation. So it's unique. And it started, the very first Universal Periodic Review started in 2008. So it was 3 years after I finished my studies. Any questions so far? It's clear? Can you understand my English? Even with my French accent? A mix of French and Spanish accent now? Okay. And then I'm gonna change another time in my life. I'm gonna leave my NGO and start working with Eagle. Eagle is an NGO made of activists, only activists. They believe they can change the world. They don't, sorry, I was going to say something. They don't care about the money they can make. It's only the cause they care about. It's a network of national NGOs based in Africa who want to fight against international crime and in particular the traffickers in protected animal species. Okay, so the idea is basically to put in jail those who traffic animals. What are the animals? It's wildlife. It's any kind of flora, fauna that can make money. It's exactly the same system, be it in animals or in drugs or in trafficking in humans. Every single thing that can bring you money, you'll go for it. You want to make money. Money is the most important value for criminals, which is quite strange because how many of you are studying economy? What? What are you studying here? Okay, 2 people are studying economy. In economy, the new trend is to put a price on one life, right? Some economists want to protect one life, so they think that we must put a price on one life. How much cost a tree, an elephant, etc. Doing so, actually, we're following the path of criminals. They put a price on tree, on wildlife in general, on flora. So it's quite strange, actually, that economists share the same view of the world as criminals. And today, I've been traveling in Latin America for 4 years. I work as a journalist, so again, a different life.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
You explained the what, but it doesn't mention the why. Like, I mean, you jump from this to this to this, and I'd be curious to know what made you decide to go to this association, to create this NGO. What was like the core value that you were trying to follow?
Well, we could spend hours, and that's why I wrote a book. But that's a very good question. It was actually my second point, and
Sorry.
The thing is that who is familiar with the philosopher Spinoza? You are. Oh, excellent. Spinoza believes that when you follow your inner and true desires, you have more energy, you're more efficient. And I've tried all my life to follow my true desires. And you feel much happier. And you feel happier, you have more energy. And I've always tried to follow my inner call, you know. And after finishing my, after graduating, I wanted to be a journalist first. I failed. I wanted to be a human rights activist. I failed. But I wanted to try to work in the human rights field. So I created my NGO. So it was an inner call to work for the others.
If I may, when we were having lunch before, you said that when you started with human rights and you worked with human rights for a while, then it was not exactly adapted to your values. That's why you quit. And I think that's the question, probably.
That's after.
Okay.
So first, why I co-founded UPR Info. I co-founded UPR Info because I wanted to work in the human rights field. But after 10 years working in the human rights field, I felt exhausted. I felt exhausted because the human rights supposed activists were not activists anymore. It has become very professional, and especially at the international level. At the national level, it's very different. But at the international level, the international human rights movement had to professionalize itself a lot in order to meet the new challenges. But I don't like. For me, a human rights professional is an activist, first of all. You know, it's not about money, it's about the community. It's about helping minorities, helping whatever, people who face the rudeness of this world. And at some point, I was just exhausted. I spent 10 years doing the same work, even if it was changing all the time. I was happy with what I did. I created the largest advocacy platform for human rights in the world. So we had activists from 193 countries coming to Geneva and trying to lobby the diplomats. It was unique. It is still unique today. But I felt like incomplete. I spent years traveling back and forth to Africa. I've enjoyed this unique wildlife. There is no such other place on this world where you can see this megafauna. It's only in Africa. And I wanted to give back to those animals who inhabited my dreams. You know, I wanted to care about them and to fight against those who were trying to kill them. So I don't see so much. This is a reflection that needs more time, but I'm trying to see if there is really a boundary between human rights and animal rights. Because to me, it's about the world, the planet, not only humans. We are Homo sapiens. We are animals. Just a bit smarter, with larger communities, but we are monkeys. So, but that needs more reflection. Is that clear?
Thank you so much for it.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
So why don't you use the term fundamental rights? So because generally in the academia, when you use, like when you want to add, like to combine human rights and animals' rights, you generally say fundamental rights, which is for me more exhaustive and is the best way to use the
Both.
Yeah. So what do you
We're
think?
going to have a discussion. I have no idea what fundamental rights are. I know basic rights, but that's new to me. actually. And maybe that
Okay.
You
fits
have to
better.
come back.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna discuss it. I'm here to learn, so don't hesitate also to ask me questions. So, first of all, what is illegal wildlife trade? There is only one international convention where the scope defines what is legal and illegal. It's the cities, the Convention on International Trade and Wildlife, Fauna, Flora, whatever. I don't remember exactly the acronym. But it's again about trade. It's not about saying wildlife should be protected. It's about how can we trade wildlife. Again, money. Always money. We're only talking about money when it comes to wildlife. And that maybe explains the issue we are facing with biodiversity. Do you know how much biodiversity have we lost in 50 years?
40%?
How much?
Between 40 and 60%?
69%. In 50 years, we are collapsing. We need this biodiversity. We need those insects. We need those giants of the bush, the savanna. We need them. Not only because they are nice, because they are, but also because it's our survival which is at stake. Actually, the illegal trafficking in animals is the fourth most lucrative illegal activity in the world. Between the third and the fifth, we're talking about illegal activity, so it's very difficult to know exactly what the numbers are, but it's about a lot of money. We're talking about billions of dollars. And it requires a change of perspective. We cannot just accept it. We need to save biodiversity, but we need to change our perspective about any kind of illegal traffic. For the drugs, we have failed for 80 years at least to fight against illegal networks, against cocaine. The FARC, the guerrilla, the former guerrilla in Colombia, used to have a submarine. The Colombian state doesn't have any submarine. So the money at stake is just huge. But how does it work actually in the field? It's all about corruption. Money again. All about corruption that enables some people from the cities, so the convention against the convention for the trade in animals and flora. So some people can be corrupt. You can just buy them, and they give you a permit to trade some protected animals. The corruption from multinationals who are killing these planets. They have more power than some states, especially states from the global south. This corruption is at the core of any kind of illegal activity. And if we don't address corruption, we can't change anything in any kind of illegal activity. Corruption is the reason why illegal activities can pursue their illegal activity. How many of you have studied the UN system? I hope some of you have. My very personal opinion is that the UN is quite useless when it comes to any kind of wartime activity. And I think we are at war against illegal traffickers, illegal criminals in general, and the UN has several systems put in place in order to address those illegal activities. As a person who used to work in the field, I've never seen any result. I've never met any UN representative. I don't say they don't care, but I rather say this is not an efficient system to address the situation when we are at war. During peacetime, the UN is wonderful because there is political will from states to change, to bring new laws, to implement those laws. But during wartime, it's another story. It's quite provocative what I say. No one wants to react. Please.
I think it's normal because we have sovereignty. So as soon as it's like if we had a group of individuals that are like independent and free of their own body, if they want to fight and we are all at the same level, we cannot do anything. But if we want to cooperate, we are free to cooperate together and we can do something. So it really makes sense that the UN is something that can build amazing thing in time of peace, but that cannot lead to anywhere in that time of war because it's not like a state, a global state. It is not. And if we see the UN as a global state, we are just like hoping for something that will never happen. So you're right, but it's not shocking to me.
Okay. Anyone who is shocked? You're supposed to defend the UN, especially as students.
No, I think we are more critical on UN than you think.
If I can give you an advice, never be cynical. You know, especially Europeans are very cynical, and cynicism helps us to accept, to survive sometimes, but doesn't help us to act, you know. And outside Europe, I don't find this kind of irony or cynicism, and I feel better in a world where there is no cynicism. So I've already spoke about Spinoza and why, yeah, maybe I got familiar with a wonderful individual, still prince, Belgian prince called de Merode, who, while being director of the Virunga Park in DRC, in Congo, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, got shot twice because he was protecting the national park of the Virungas against a multinational. So they tried to kill him. And there was this wonderful documentary, I think it was released in 2014, 14 or 15, but I saw it in 2015. And I saw this guy who was crazy enough to accept to get killed for his park. And this person really inspired me. And I realized that the things you care about, you should be ready to die for them. And that's also part of my response to why I got to work with the Eagle Network, with protection of animals in the field. And any of you has ever watched Virunga, a documentary? Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about.
With the
In-
lowland gorillas.
Sorry?
Lowland gorillas. No?
Yeah.
And it
Wonderful.
was an oil company, I believe.
Sorry?
And it was an oil company that
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
drill in
yeah.
the
Was inspiring, right? The courage of this man. Now maybe I can give you some information about what is the work I used to do with this strange hidden eagle network. My work was to infiltrate criminal networks, make sure we arrest them, and make sure they stay in jail. Because of corruption, people, criminals, can go out of jail. We know how much we should pay, let's say, a police officer, a police chief, in order to get out of jail. It depends on the countries, but it's very cheap. It can cost something like $300. So if you don't make sure that there is no corruption act during the process of arresting and persecuting the criminal will flee. The criminal network mentioned in my book, the father of the head of the criminal network in Abidjan, of the Chinese criminal network in Abidjan, is one of the richest men of China. Is the CEO of one of the biggest companies in China. We can't put in jail his father. It's not going to happen. But we can put in jail his son. And we did. And he stayed in jail for 18 months, which was the highest sentence that he could get for this time, for his act. So, again, corruption. You can fight it. You must fight it. Without corruption, there is no criminal activity on this planet. Full stop.
But why is there corruption?
Sorry?
Why is there corruption? Because there is poverty. I mean, if you need to give food to your children and you don't have, so you have several options, but corruption is a good one. I mean, I would maybe be the first one. No, but I mean, you want to give food to your children. So how do you act when there is so much poverty, so much, what else can you do?
The thing is that the most corrupted people are not the poor.
Okay.
Those who really make sometimes the planet a hell are not the poor poachers in Africa. But even the poachers. So there is a difference between poachers and traffickers. I should have introduced this difference initially. The poacher is poaching the elephants, for example, or the pangolins in the national park, okay, where there is wildlife. The trafficker is the businessman. He's the guy who usually lives in capital. He's not in the field. In the field, we find the poachers, usually coming from rural communities. But even in the rural communities, you have people deciding to find a way to provide for the family, a legal way. There are opportunities. And some decide the easy way, to go the easy way, right? The illegal way. The illegal way is easier. Sometimes you can get richer, right? But it's a personal decision. They have less opportunities opportunities for sure that me as a white man, born in Switzerland, one of the richest countries in the world, and as a man, on top of that, they have less options. I agree with that. But it's also a personal decision. Responsibility is the only way to grow up, I think, as an individual, but as a society. So those people engaging into these criminal activities know exactly what they are doing. They know it's illegal. And in Kenya, for example, in the Tsavo National Park, they try to rehabilitate them. When they catch poacher, they offer them this following choice. Either you work for us and you won't go to jail, or you'll go to jail. And those who decide not to work for the national park usually go to jail, and then they continue their illegal activities because they know that they're not going to stay in jail for long because of corruption. So that's why it's a very good question, and so you need to meet with those poachers to understand how they reflect.
You say that they know that it's illegal, so they are conscious on that. But do you think that they are conscious on the fact that animals have value in themselves? And what I mean by that is, my grandmother, for example, was like really Catholic and everything, and she told me once that in the Bible it's written that you can do whatever you want with animals because they were created on earth for you human. So it was her view, and she really loved animals, but for her it was like here for us. Mm-hmm. And do you believe that the people that are killing these animals understand or believe in the fact that they have a value or in themselves, or they just know that it's illegal, but for them it's just something that is here for profit?
I personally think that when it comes to money, there is no value. Money cuts yourself from any kind of personal value-based system, inner value-based system you can have, because you need to have values to live every day, you know. But money has this effect that your values will disappear on the spot when it comes to money. It's more about how much is your price, that's what your values are. Most of us are corruptible, you know, and they have their price. Yeah, maybe 100,000 US dollar is not enough, but when someone comes with 1 million, are your values really strong enough? Because you want the latest, how is it called? Lexa, no, Tesla. It's quite expensive. So the thing is that indeed, religion, spirituality can set up those boundaries between what you want to do and what you shouldn't do. But those engaging in my opinion, those engaging into illegal activities, they have no values. They pretend, you know, it's like the mafia in Italy. They go to the church every Sunday, just after killing kids. How come? I can't totally answer, you know, your question, because maybe every single individual will have its own responses to this question. But it's a very good question, actually. But at Eagle, we didn't believe in those personal boundaries or social boundaries, be it spiritual, religious, or whatever. We wanted to put people in jail, full stop. We talk to criminals only in order to climb up the ladder of the criminal system, you know? So there is an interrogatory that helps us when we arrest traffickers. We're gonna interrogate them and try to understand how the network works, okay? And that's when I actually had some personal conflicts about my previous activity as a human rights defender, where I was trying to strengthen the rule of law. I was working for an NGO. How on earth an NGO should be allowed to investigate? I was no police officer, but I was investigating on the field. I was putting in jail the traffickers. I was interrogating them. I wasn't strengthening the rule of law of the country. I spent 10 years, and then 10 years trying to enhance the inner statal system, you know, to improve the state, the laws, and then I'm breaking the laws. And that's actually when I had to set up a personal boundary. For example, the reason why I wanted to work in human rights was because I saw torture earlier in my life. Torture was the reason why I wanted to work in the human rights field. So it was also, for any of my activity with Eagle, one of those boundaries that I had, which was not very difficult because the NGO had also this very same boundary. So I didn't enter in a conflict with my colleagues or or the head of Eagle, of your drawing, but I was quite at ease with my own values and the work I was doing. How the Graduate Institute helped me? When I was sitting on those bench, well, we used to be on the other side. I wasn't in this luxurious place. But I couldn't have imagined working as a hunter of traffickers in Africa 10, 15 years ago, later, sorry. And how did it help me? Well, the Graduate Institute gave me tools to understand, to research on how, to understand how this world works. Through its multidisciplinary views, I could pretend being, for example, let's say a doctor when doing investigations. Because the Graduate Institute triggered many of my later interests. And the Graduate Institute actually was a wonderful place when debating with my colleagues about what we should do in this world to ameliorate this world. And the Graduate Institute didn't give me everything, but it showed me that I should research more, actually, to understand actually the reality on the ground. And not only in a class, in a room, we need to go further. But it shows you that there is further to learn, further actions to undertake. I think I'm done, actually. I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
I was just wondering if you could give us more details. I was very intrigued about how do you make contact with these networks? How do you begin that first?
With Eagle Network, you mean? So which network?
No, with
criminal
the trafficking
networks?
network.
Sorry?
With the trafficking.
With the traffickers. Well, we just pretend to be buyers. We want to buy, for example, for our boss in China, we want to buy ivory, pangolin scales, rhino horns. It's more in the southern part of Africa. In the northern part, there is no. So the places where I've been working, there is no rhino left. But we talk about pangolin scales, for example. So we pretend we have a boss in China who wants to buy pangolin scales, and we go to villages. The thing is that, as I discovered when working for Eagle, when you're a white person in Africa, you're the boss. And for me, it wasn't obvious. I've spent, 10 years promoting the other parts of the world in Geneva, and I arrived in Africa, and I had to be a motherfucker, to pretend, that I don't care about anything I used to promote, and I have to. When I'm working with a black investigator, an African investigator, I have to be rude to him. Usually it's only men, but we used to have also women investigators, which is quite actually useful in the field. So you pretend to be the boss of your colleague, who is also an investigator, and you want to buy stuff, so you go first to rural villages in order to catch a middleman, not the big trafficker, but first the middleman. And you get introduced into a network. And then the idea is to climb up actually the network and to catch the head of the network, which can take sometimes months if it's a good network doing good business, good criminal activity. It's much more complicated. It takes months, years, but sometimes the network is quite new, so they get caught very quickly. It's clear?
And just a quick follow-up, why were you saying that sometimes women investigators were also useful to have?
Because nobody, men are really stupid. And when they see a woman, they can't believe that this woman is an undercover agent. Why? I don't know, but men are like this. They always, men always underestimate women. That's maybe why. There was another.
Sorry.
Please.
Whether you have come up with such kind of life threats,
Speak.
have you ever come across such kind of life threats by interest groups? Because I heard from a senior who participated in the rescuing activities in Africa against some trafficking activities. He came across some life threats by the interest group. So I'm wondering whether you have come across all the people who participate in the activities that ever experience such kind of dangerous moments.
Well, yes. One of the chapter of my book, actually, for example, depicts how an entire neighborhood was against my colleagues and I, because we were extracting a huge trafficker from his community. And those trafficker actually helps sometimes an entire neighborhood to survive poverty. Because they have money, they give money to their neighbors. So they are seen as good people, actually. They don't know, or maybe they don't care about how does he get money. So at some point, I had a huge number of children and women at first, and I never underestimate women, so I knew that they could kill me. You know, it's just with that knife, be it a woman or not, can kill you. But then later on, there was a huge group of younger men, and they were very upset that we were extracting this trafficker. They wanted to protect him. So if we weren't quick enough to leave the place, it would have been very dangerous. And that day, I was quite scared and very happy when we left the place before a huge number of young men coming for us. Yeah, that was maybe the scariest moment. But in general, I would say that if you fear for your life, you shouldn't do this kind of job. Because you're not gonna do good work. You know, it's like a police officer. If a police officer is scared for his life, he should do something else. Thank you.
So you've talked a lot about the enforcement part, and I was just curious, what are other ways to prevent poaching? And maybe I'm going to do a comparison that might be a bit provocative, but I want to see if it's warranted, in your opinion, to the war on drugs. And I want to know, just as some enforcement agencies are taking down a particular cartel, then another one springs up, and it doesn't really address the underlying factors contributing to the trade of drugs. So I'm not saying that we should make wildlife poaching legal, but what are other avenues to address it? And to your, with your experience, how efficient do you think enforcement is in these contexts?
Look, to be frank, I think it's not efficient enough, in the sense that poaching is continuing, trafficking is continuing. Actually, during the COVID-19, it accelerated because there were no visitor in the national parks, so poachers just go and poached animals easily, more easily than before. And enforcement is not enough. But the thing is that I strongly believe that all of this happens because we are disconnected from nature. We don't understand what nature is. And we cannot love nature. We cannot contemplate wildlife anymore. All monkeys, I was talking just before, all monkeys are used to contemplate wildlife. They just watch, like gorillas, like chimps. They just watch what's happening around them. And when you live, for example, here, it's quite complicated to find connected to the nature. When you find this connection, you know you want to protect it. You know it's part of you. You feel better when you have this connection. And I think most Western countries, but not only, Chinese are also disconnected from the nature. And that's why after having killed almost all Nepalese pangolins, Chinese are now killing some Chinese, not the entire China, but some Chinese are killing wildlife in Africa because they killed already most of the wildlife in Asia. They feel disconnected, and that's maybe one of the toughest challenge today, how do we bring back this connection we lost to the nature? We never talk about love when it comes to wildlife. It's strange. It's strange, but it's all about love. We like to see animals. We enjoy our time in the forest, in mountains, in the sea. Those moments are particular to us. It's all about love, but we never talk about love, only about money, all the time. And I think that's because of this disconnection.
I like what you said about like it was Seneca, or no, it was not Seneca, the philosopher. Spinoza, thank you. It was about Spinoza and the fact of being cynical. And I have this tendency of swinging between the two, because of course you want to do what you love because you think it is important, and then it will bring you the energy to do it. But at the same time, when you're like sorting your waste, you're cycling to work, you're trying not to have too many baths, all these kind of things, that is still energy. And then at the same time, you know that we are creating like a World Cup in Qatar, and that we are building the biggest yacht ever in the world right now, still now, and that we are doing all these kind of things that are so bigger than you, and you're like insignificant. How can't you be cynical, and how can you still follow this path of believing in what you do and thinking that you have an impact? Because we don't.
The thing is that when you're doing, again, what your inner person, your spirituality, your religion, whatever, tells you to do, you find this energy. I wrote this book not to become rich, because I'm not gonna be rich at all, but also to show younger people that a former sort of diplomat, I don't know how to depict myself about the work I used to do as a human rights defender, but I was in a suit in the UN lobbies talking to diplomats most of my time. And a few months later, I'm in Africa catching traffickers. I didn't expect that, you know, for me. But I just followed my inner call. And sometimes, not sometimes, almost all the time, people just tell you you can't do it. But actually you can. If you really follow your own desire, you know, you shouldn't follow your mother's desires, your friend's desire, your boyfriend's desire, whatever. You should just follow yourself, who you are. And then the energy comes up. If I did it, I'm not special. I'm not special at all. I was just a random human rights defender, traveling, taking the plane all the time, you know. And I did something unusual, quite unusual. Not because I'm special, because I wanted to do it.
Yes, so I think there is space for elephant, but also for other issues. But my question is more about, in practical terms, how you came across this Eagle network. Like, because, okay, there is desire, there is passion, you want to go on the field, but like in practical terms, if a student wants to, I don't know, in 10 years do the same, how to, in practical terms, reach these organizations that are doing this type of work?
There are very few organizations. There is only one Eagle, in the sense there is only one NGO that I'm aware of, which investigates, arrests, and make sure that the traffickers stay in jail. I've never met or heard of any other NGO doing that. There are some NGOs doing actually investigation. HEI, Environmental International Agency, that's something like that. They operate also in Latin America and in Asia, but they don't do arrests. An NGO shouldn't do arrests, shouldn't carry out arrests. But there are very few NGOs doing that. We should expect Interpol doing such work, but they don't. I met a few years ago, before leaving Geneva, I met the only person in Lyon, in Interpol offices, working on illegal wildlife trade. There was one person doing that. Because most of the people in Interpol are not interested, actually, in wildlife trafficking. While wildlife trafficking is a real issue, because we're talking, again, about billions of illegal activity. Those billions will fuel corruption and will make this world less safe for animals and for humans. So I would say it's up to every student to find he or her own way to engage, you know. I just want to show an example of one single student who actually could find a way, you know, but every of us is able to find a way. I don't think that all of us are made to work for Eagle. I had to, during the recruitment process, usually it takes something like 1 year to be recruited. I was recruited in 2 months, but I didn't know that, you know, it's usual to last for 1 year. And I was 2 months, that's huge. But actually there was hundreds of other applicants. And there are very few selected individuals in Eagle. And you have to have also an experience before, and it's not made for everybody. But I think there is so many ways to address the loss of biodiversity. And especially you are younger than me. You understand better than I do this world. So you have a different view from me of what should be done. And it's more your world than mine now. And it's up to you to be creative. And again, when people tell you it's not feasible, just do it. If you really believe in, don't listen to people telling you that you can't do it, because you can. But that's our world. We have to take care about our world.
I think there is no question online, so probably we will stop here for this, and we can start like something more informal. We can stand up and please go ahead with your question.
Sorry, because you mentioned that the connectivity between human and nature, and as a person who really loves nature and wants to protect, I see some friends who are not really into nature, but still, even I'm their friend, it's hard for me to like say them, oh, you have to change your ways of like buying something or like your lifestyle. So what do you think?